back, guys, to the NodeJS series. So today we're gonna be starting off with Express with Node.js. So on the past videos we were using Node alone, making a RESTful API using pure Node and no npm package. So today we're gonna be adding npm packages to our RESTful API to make things nice, quick and easy, right? So we're gonna be saying npm init. So this is how you initialize your Node.js API or backend, right? So once we do that, the package name will be that, the version description, we can say this is the backend for authentication, right? So we're gonna be making an authentication backend, and I love my entry point to be server.js. And then the test commands, there's nothing there. Git repo, we don't have anything right now. The keywords, and then the author is Junior Shangwana, right? So this is what we have right now, and then we'll say okay. So as you can see right now, we should be having a package.json. So now if we just want to read this package.json, this is what we are having currently. So we do not have anything, right? So now let's just open this within our text editor. So we're gonna be building an authentication, so we're gonna be taking it slowly, and then you'll see, guys, this will be a nice backend API for authentication. We're gonna be adhering to everything from ES6 till MVC, right? We're gonna be taking to that level MVC. So what we need is, we're gonna be needing some few packages, right? So the first package that we need is Express, right? That's what we need. That is our framework that we'll be using. So Express, and then we need in order to use ES6, okay, let's just take it slowly. So let's just say install Express for now. So while Express is installing, I would like you guys to also what we call make a MongoDB account if you guys don't have a MongoDB account, because we'll be saving our users there. And if you guys didn't see the Twitter clone that I made, go check it out. It is looking really good and real time, I tell you. So let's just create a new project while that is installing, and it's done. So we install Express. So in order for us to use ES6 in our Node.js API or backend, we need the Babel, right? So we'll say npm install at babel /core at babel /preset env at babel /node. So this is what we need in order to use ES6, and I'll show you guys, I'll walk you through each and every thing that you have to do. So just install that while we go back to MongoDB. So now we'll say this will be YouTube tutorial auth, right? Let's just say authentication API, right? And then we create that project. So if you guys are liking this type of videos of Node.js series, like, share, comment and subscribe, and I'll definitely make more of this, right? So right here, definitely gonna be using the free, unless you guys want to pay. It's up to you, but then I'll be using the free one. It's sufficient for me right now, and normally I just keep it the same and use North Virginia. And then you can choose your cluster name here. You can rename this, but then I won't be renaming that, right? So and then I create cluster. So right now our cluster has been created. It might take some few minutes, so let's just let that create. So now our Babel is installed, so let's just come and set up Babel, right? So before we do that, in order for us, because remember when we were running our server back then, we would say node and then server.js, right? However, we kept on killing the server. So in order for us to not worry about killing the server or restarting the server, we need nodemon. So now let's install nodemon. Let's say npm install nodemon, and we want this as a dev dependency, so you flag it with a dash and then D, right? So that is a dev dependency. So while that is installing, we need to set up our Babel. So say Babel RC, and then in Babel RC we want to say presets, and then in our presets I want to say Babel / preset -env, right? So this is what we need in our Babel RC. And then we need to come to package.json, and then in package.json we need to handle our script. So there's no test script, and if you want me to do tests for our API, comment down below and I'll show you how to make tests in Node.js, right? And we'll be using, if you guys do want this, we'll be using Mocha and Chai we'll be using Mocha and Chai to do that. So let's say start. So in our start we'll say Babel -node and then server.js, and then we need our dev. So this is what we'll be using. We'll be using NodeMon, but then this is for production, right? And then we'll say NodeMon --exec Babel -node and then server.js. So this is what you want to copy and paste in order to run NodeMon, and then this is for production. So so now let's just start up a basic server so that you guys can see how this works, right? So we say server.js. So this will be our server entry point. So right now we can use ES6 and say import express from express, but then if we didn't use Babel, we'll be using const express equal to require, as we were doing there on pure Node.js. But then now, because we're using Babel will translate this to that, right? So now we have that. So now we need to instantiate our Express app. So we say Express, right? And that should be our Express app, and then we say app.listen, and then we want to listen at port 5000, and you guys can choose any number. I just prefer port 5000 for my backend server. And then let's just console.log server started on port 5000 not 500. So right now I hope this should work and we shouldn't debug anything. So let's just start this up. So we'll just say npm run dev because we want to use NodeMon, right? And then NodeMon should instantiate that. So now we have our server listening at port 5000. So right now we are using Express right now. So but then we want to follow the MVC pattern, right? So we'll need some few packages that I like to use with my Express. So let's just kill this. So we need to body pass the request that's coming. So we'll say npm install formidable. So this is what I like for body passing. Some people would use Malta, some people would use Busboy, things like that. You guys can research on that. And then we say npm install formidable, and then we also need Mongoose, right? So you should know that with npm you can install more than one package. So I can say Mongoose. So this will first install formidable and then install Mongoose, right? So Mongoose will help us interact with MongoDB and interact with this database that we just created right here, and then we'll get back to that in a few minutes, right? So this is what I need. And I also need, so currently because we don't have a front end, there's not, we'll also need .env. So right now I'm just installing this so that we adhere to best practices, that is hiding your MongoDB keys, right? So we now want to install that. So while that is installing, we can remove this right here. So right here what's happening is we wanna import our MongoDB, not MongoDB, but our Mongoose. Say Mongoose. So say import Mongoose from Mongoose. We also wanna import .env from .env. So .env is used to hide your API keys and everything. So here you make a new folder saying .env, right? So right here, let's come back to MongoDB so that we can get over and done with this. So you want to come to database access. So you want to create a new database user. So I'll be creating a temp user as always for those that follow me on my tutorials, and then I'll generate the key, and then this is the key that is generated, and then copy that key, and then I'll make this user a temp user for just 6 hours, right? And then I'll copy this password there. So now that we've copied this password, note that you should also have your password and the name that is going to be used in your connection stream. You want to come to network access. So you want to add an IP address. So you can use your current IP, but then I won't be doing that because I don't want to show you guys my IP address. But then I'll just say allow access from anywhere, right? And then I do that. So now when that is done, I come back to my cluster. So I want to have my connection string, right? So in my connection string, I'll connect my application, and this is the Mongo connection string that I want. I just copy that. And then what I do is and then say Mongo URI is equal to, and then I paste that connection string, and then I take this password and I paste it here, right where it's written password. As you can see, I paste that there. So if you guys want, you can change the database name here. So for example, if I want my database name to be test, let's just say test, but then here you guys will say anything that you guys want, right? So this will be the database name, and this is my connection string. So now I have .env. In order to instantiate this, I have to say .env.config, and then now that is instantiated. So now I can use process.env dot whatever env argument that I have here, right? So now that is done, I need to start up with my middlewares, right, and my connection string. So right here we wanna have our MongoDB connection and configs, right? So this is what we want to instantiate here. So what we do here is we want to say const Mongo URI. So this is the connection string Mongo URI, and then you say process.env.mongo URI. So this name should be exactly as this name here, right? So now that's what we have. So now we want to connect right now. So you say mongoose.connect, and then in your connection, as you can see here, it needs your URI connection string and then your options, and then I'll tell you what the options are, right? So we say Mongo URI. So now with options is MongoDB has deprecated some few the way it works and everything. So we need to say new URL parser, and then we set that to being true, and then we want to use also the unified topology. So I've never myself looked into deep with this, but then this is just things that we need in order to be using the newly supported way of MongoDB, right? So MongoDB will bring back a callback, as we looked on what callbacks are and everything on the theoretical section, but then it will bring a callback, and that callback is either an error or nothing, right? So now we want to handle that, right? So we say if we do get an error, we want to return. So I'm using return keyword because I want this thing to exit out, right? I hope that makes sense. So we want to return a console.log of the error, and then else if there's nothing here, I then want to console I then want to console.log connection to MongoDB was successful, right? So I'm returning here so that whatever that is within, that is below this if block, doesn't get executed. Else I should have just written an else statement, which I just don't prefer to do that, right? So now this is how we connect to MongoDB, right? So now we want to start up with our server configuration, right? So server configs, right? So now with our server configuration, we now have the Express app initialized, but then we need a port. So we say const port is equals to process.env.port. So why am I doing this is if we wanted to deploy this app, we definitely will be getting a port from that server that we deployed it on, and then else if there's no port within our process.env, we want to fall back to 5000, right? So this is just the best practice, and that's how Node.js will know that if I'm deployed, it will use the port number given here, else it falls back to 5000, right? And then we say app.listen to the port that we gave it, and then we return a callback, and then logging out with backticks saying server started on port, and then whatever port that would be, right? So now let's start the server up. We expect to see this, and we expect to see that, right? So let's say npm run dev, and then that should run. node-mon is executing, and we should have our server started on port 5000. Let's see if our MongoDB connect, and MongoDB is successfully connected. So now let's start out with our user authentication logic. So now we need to define a schema for our user, right? So let's just close all this. So now we need to have a new folder called models, and in this models we want to have a folder, let's say users. So this is how I just like to handle my file structure, so don't mind this. You guys don't have to do this, but then just for sakes of handling how I do handle things, right? So now we want to handle that. So we want to import mongoose from mongoose, and then what we then do is we need a user schema is equal to mongoose.schema, and then in our authentication system we'll want to have a username, and then this type of the username should be a string, and it should be required, and this username must be unique, and then we say unique true. So this is what we need from our user. And then we also need password with a type of string, and then required true, and that should be it with the password, right? And then we'll say email, and then in the next videos, while we're improving this API, we'll make our user verify their email by using NodeMailer, sending them an email to verify their email. So I'll show you guys how that works, but then right now we're just focusing on the bare bones of log in and sign up and log in, and then moving forward we'll do log out, and then we'll do account recovery. Moving on, guys, you guys will see, we'll make it good, and we'll use express session, things like that, right? So you guys will see how that works. So let's say required true, and it should be unique, right? Because only one email should exist. And then finally, let's say is activated, is account verified, right? So this is what we'll be handling in the future, right? So but then this should be a type of of boolean, and the default, so this is not required, but then default should be false, right? Because account is not verified yet. So we need the username of type string, required and unique, the password type of string, required true, and then the email type of string, required and also unique. So now we have to export our user model, which will be mongoose.model, and then we have to specify the name of the model. We'll say user model, and then we have to specify the schema that we want to use. We'll say user schema, right? So export const. So this is ES6, guys. So export this thing, right? But then I could have just written export default and then pass out that user model. So just shorthand ES6, right? So now this is our user model that we created, right? So now we want to start with our controller because we're adhering to MVC. So now we want to start with our controller. So we'll say controller. We'll say controller, and then in here we want to make an auth controller, and then let's say auth controller.js, right? So how I like to make my controllers is by using classes, right? So for authentication, it's best practice that you do not store. If someone's password is 1234, you do not want to store the password as 1234. So for that, we'll need Bcrypt to hash the password, right? So now let's install Bcrypt. So let's kill the server and I say npm install Bcrypt, right? So this is what we need to hash the password, and we'll also verify the password when someone logs in, right? So now what we do is we say import not express, but I want to import Bcrypt from Bcrypt, and then what else do we also need? We need formidable for body passing from formidable, and that should be all we need. If there's anything else we need, we'll add that to the mix, right? So now we want to instantiate our auth controller. So we say class, and we'll say auth controller, and then this auth controller will have two functions for today, which is login and registering, right? So let's start with sign up. Let's just say sign up. So now our sign up must take in two parameters, that is a request and a response, right? So now what we need to do is we need to instantiate our formidable to pass this request, right? So then we say const form is equals to new formidable.incoming form, right? So now how we pass the request is we say form.pass, and then we want to pass the request because it say pass the incoming message, and then it returns back a callback, right? So the callback that we get is either an error or the fields. So the fields are basically the texts or files. So the files is either the media file that you got from the request from the client, right? So that's what formidable will break everything into. So but then for us, we are expecting fields, and what we expect is when we come back to our model, we expect username, password and email. That's what we expect, right? So what we do is we say const, so we want to destructure this field, right? So we say const, and then we say username, we expect the email, we expect the password, but then because we want to make this as real life as possible, we expect the verified password, because in a normal authentication a user must write a password and also verify that password, and then all this is coming from fields. This is just ES6 destructuring, right? So now we want to validate this incoming request. So we want to check if username does not exist, or email does not exist, or the password is not entered, or the verified password is not entered. If there's any one of these fields that are not entered, we wanna return a response.status of 400.json, and then we send back a message saying all fields have to be entered, right? So status of 400 bad request. And then what we then do is now we want to validate the password. So in our API, if password.length is less than 6, we wanna return a response.status of 400.json, and then we send back a message saying that password has to be at least 6 characters long, right? So now we also want to make our other validation. If password is not equal to verified password, we then want to return a response.status of 400.json, and then we say message saying that passwords do not match, right? So now before we go forward, I forgot something. So it's not a drastic change. So from your code here, from form.parse, come here, just highlight that, cut that, and then it's best practice to put your logic in a try-catch block, because there might be something happening within your server. So right now what you want to do is in your catch, you want to catch any errors that is coming from your server. So this is just best practice, and then you return a response.status of 500, because this is something happening within your server. It has nothing to do with the user, right? And then you want to return response.json, and then you want to return a message saying that server is currently down, please try again later. So this is just best practice. And then if you want to see the error for debugging purposes, you console log the error, right? So now that was just that change, but then let's just continue with this. So here we just checked if the passwords do match. If they don't match, we return a bad request. And then now the final thing is we want to check if a user does exist with this username and this email. If a user does exist with the username and the email, we want to return a status of 500. So now what we want to do is we need to import our user model, right? So how we do that is we then come here, we say import user model from, go back to up, go back there, models, users, that, right? So now we have our user model, and then we say const is existing user. So now because we are dealing with MongoDB, we want to have asynchronous operations. So this is when you know you want to use async await, or you want to use promises, right? So as you saw, I never so much started with async await. I first wait until I have a main reason to work with async await, right? So I then say async here and not here. Why do I do that here? Because this function is rendering what I have here. However, this function is rendering all this. I hope that made sense. So then we say await, and then what I want to do is I want to say user model dot find one, because I want it to return one document and not an array of documents, right? And then I want to find one where the username is equal to the username, also the email is equal to the email. That's what I want to do, right? So now after doing that, MongoDB will return null if there's no user, or if there's a user it will return an object. So what we do is we say if not, so no, what we do is we say if there is an existing user, because that's what we want. An existing user so that we can return back a bad request telling this user that a user does already exist. So we say return a response dot status of 400.json, and then send a message saying that the user with this email and username already exists. Right, so now that's how we handle avoiding duplicates and everything, right? And then now finally, if this user passed all these checks, it means this user can now be signed up, right? And then what we then do is we then say const new user, right? And then we say new user model. And then remember let's just put this on the side. Remember how our schema is looking. We want the username, password, email. You do not have to enter this because it has a default of false. So whenever a user is created, this is automatically created for you, right? So now we'll use ES6 shorthand. We'll say username and then do that, and then we say email. Let me just verify that it's email, it's password, and then email, right? So however, with password, we just do not want to save a raw password because this password that we're getting is raw. We want to hash that password. So we just come up here, up on top of this new user, we say const. So how Bcrypt works is it needs a sol, right? So this is a sol that we use in order to hash the passwords. Like if you guys know about the Caesar cipher, sort of like the number of rounds, that's basically the same concept, I believe. However, Bcrypt is an asynchronous operation, so we have to await, and then we say bcrypt dot gensalt, and then we specify the number of rounds. You can specify the default is 10, but then I like, as it says, the cost of default is 10. So if I don't specify anything, default is 10, but then I like to use 15. Why? I don't know, I just like using 15. So now we have our salt ready, and then we say const hashed password is equals to, we also await also here so that it hashes until it's done, and then we want to say hash, and then on the hash we want to pass out the data and the salt. So we say the data is the password and the salt is the salt that we have. And then now I want to say password is hashed password, right? And then the email, I'll use the shorthand for the email, and then is active, I don't have to specify, right? So now I have my user object. So now what I want to do is I want to save this user. I want to say const saved user is equal to, remember we're dealing with MongoDB, we want to await the new user dot save, right? So now this user should be saved in our database, and then what we do is we then say return a response dot status of 201, not 200, 201 saying created, and then we return a JSON of the saved user, right? We return a response of the saved user. So but then as we build up our authentication controller, this is not the way that we'll be handling it. When a user registers, we want to send them an email so that they activate their account, right? But then let's leave it there. So now this should be the authentication or the sign up logic. I will go through this one more time at the end of the video. Let's just continue with the login, and I will also have the code on GitHub. Let me just somewhere instantiate the git init, right? Let's just somewhere have that, and I'll have this code on GitHub. I'll have the link in the description below, right? So let's just remove that, and then let's just have that git ignore, right? Let's have that git ignore, and I'll also want to ignore the .env file. This is something that you also want to do because it has your private keys, right? So now let's continue with login. So login should be simple. So we say login. Also request accept two parameters, request response, and then here we also want to instantiate formidable, so we say const form is equals to new formidable dot incoming form, and then we want to pass the request, we say form dot pass. Before I even do that, so right now I shouldn't forget, I put this code in a try catch, and then I return on the catch, I return a response with status of 500.json, and then send back a message saying server. Let's just copy this, I'm lazy to write that over and over again. Just server is currently down, and then we have that server is currently down, please try again later. So now in our try, we wanna try and pass the request. We wanna pass the request and then return a callback of an error, fields and files. Right. So now what we wanna do is we now wanna destructure the fields again. So what we'll be expecting when the user logs in, we expect the username and the password, that's all. And then we say this is coming from fields. Right. So now how will we validate this? Is we say if username is not there or the password is not there, and then this person was not serious, we return a response dot status of 400.json, sending back a message saying all fields have to be entered. Right. So now if this user passes that check, it means we need to search in our MongoDB and see if we do have a username of that username. So how we do that is we say const is existing user, and then now remember we're dealing with MongoDB, now we need a synchronous operation. Yeah, so we say await, and then we say user model dot find one, because we want one document, not an array of documents, and we say where the username is equal to the username. However, we need to validate now that if not exist is existing user, and then we want to return a response dot status of 400.json, and then we say message, and then we say user with this username does not exist. Right. So make sure that you see that I said not with the exclamation mark. It's unlike here where I said is existing user like that. Alright, so you guys should make sure of that difference. I use the not so that I can check if there's no user. Right. So now if this person passes this validation, it means that the username is valid, but then is the password valid? Remember, the password is hashed. We need to decipher that password. So now we say const is a valid password, and then remember we're dealing with bcrypt, it's asynchronous. We want to say await bcrypt dot compare, and then in the comparison we want to compare the password with is existing user dot password. So remember that the moment a user passes this check, it means that there is an existing user, and an existing user document will have username, password, email, and that. So now we want to compare the password with the hash. Bcrypt will do all the funny things for you. So but then for readability, we want to take this, and then we say const hashed password, and then we do that. We'll just the readability and then we do that. Right, so we want to compare the password with the hashed password. So now we have to have an if check. We say if not is valid. Right, it means that the password is not correct, is now I want to return a response.status of 400.json, and then send an error message saying that invalid credentials. Right, so you could say password not valid. I just like saying invalid credentials myself. Right, it's just a personal preference. So now if a user passes this condition, now it means the user gave a valid password and a valid username. So now what we want to do is we want to say return a response.status of 200 saying okay, you are authenticated instead of 201. So we say okay, and then we want to pass down authenticated, and then we say true. But then as we build our authentication API, we'll be sending a cookie, a server session cookie, to the client, an HTTP only cookie, and I'll show you guys how that works. Right now let's just focus on the basics. Right, so now basically this is the login and the sign up. This is the controller. Since we're following MVC, now we need to export this controller. We want to expose this controller. So now say export default, and then say auth controller. This is what we want to expose. So now we now have to handle our endpoints. Right, we're done with the controller. Just to focus on the logic again, we say sign up. It takes an parent of request and response, and then we put this whole code in a try catch block, and then what then we do is we use formidable, remember this, and then we instantiate a new instance. Right, object oriented programming, remember. So now we want to say form.pass. We pass the request. So formidable will do all the funny stuff for you. It will detect that this is a media file, this is a text. So now it returns a callback of an error, and then the fields are the texts and everything that has to do with texts, and then the files has to do with media files. So that's why we're not handling any media files. There's nothing we want to do. So right now we want to check if the username. So right now what we were doing here, let me just remove that. So right now what we were doing here is we were checking if the username is not there, is empty, or the password or the verified password. If that is the case, we want to return saying all fields have to be entered. However, our API only accepts a password with a length of 6 going up. That's our validation, and then we return a response. And you guys can see I'm always saying return. Why am I saying return? Because with Node.js, I only wanna set the headers once, meaning that I do not wanna say, for example, let's say I remove this return, it will send a response. However, it will now cascade down to this code, and if it cascades down to this code, if it returns a response again, that means that I'm sending back twice, and then it will give back an error saying that I should not set headers twice. Right, so hence the return. So the moment it hits this block, it will return and then move out of this function. Right, and then now we also check if the passwords do not match, and then we return a response of 400 saying bad request, and then our message. And then now what we want to do is we want to check if this an existing user. We use await because MongoDB is an asynchronous database. It uses asynchronous operation. It's a NoSQL database, but then using asynchronous operation. Right, so we want to search a username with the for a user with the username and the email. So however, if there is an existing user, we want to return a response saying that, and then now we want to generate a salt with the number of rounds, 15. You guys can say 20 or whatever that you guys want, and then now we hash the password with the salt, and then we make a new instance of the user model, and then we save that, and then we return that. And then in the catch, this has to do with any server side errors. Right, and then we'll log that, and then we return that. In the login, the same thing with the formidable try catch, the same thing with formidable here, passing the request. We expect the username and password. We check if there's any missing fields, that is the username or password. We return that. If there's not, we check if there's an existing user, of the username. If there is not, hence the exclamation mark. If there is not, we're gonna return that response 400. Else, if then there is, I wanna take that password and then compare it with the password given. And then if the password is not valid, I wanna say invalid credentials, and then return a response saying authenticated true, and then the rest is for any server-side errors, nothing to do with the user, right? So now we exposed this controller. We wanna leverage that now in our endpoints. So now we say a new folder saying route. So this is a convention that is used in Node.js of file structure. You guys can figure out how you want to do it, but this is how I do it, right? And then we want to say auth route, and then I say auth.js, right? So right now I want to import the auth controller, that. So I want to import the auth controller from, go up, that in the controller, auth controller. Then I want to import express from express. However, because remember that I'm not in the base server, so in the base server I just instantiated my express like that. But then in your routes you want to say const router is equal to express dot router, right? So now then our router we can use to say, for example, let's just make it basic so that you guys are familiar with the router. If I say router.get, and then I say /API/test, and then I say request, I say request response, and then I just say so our router will take in the endpoint which we have to hit, and then it has a callback of the request and the response, and then the request will have whatever that we were doing. Remember, yeah, we were destructuring that request with formidable, so, and then also a response, the response that we want to send. So right now if I do that, I can say response dot send, and then I want to send back, let's say hello world, right, just to show you guys. So now I have this router. I now want to expose this route to my API. What I do, I say export default, and then I want to export the router, right? So now I can leverage this router here, and then I import that here, and I say import auth route from my base directory, and then auth route, and then up above my app.listen, as always, you want your endpoints, right? You say endpoints, and then in your endpoint you want to say app.use, and then you use this auth route that you have here. You say auth route, right? So now let's try and use that. So I want to say npm run dev, so I have that running, and then how we then do that is, okay, so we're having errors here. So what's happening now? Class properties isn't currently enabled. Okay, let's not expose the classes yet. We'll come back to that. Let's just do that. Let's just comment that out so that our server doesn't know about that, and then we'll fix whatever error that is arising there. That's not a problem. Just to show you guys how the router works, let's just make a new terminal, and then let's just say cal localhost 5000/API/test, right? And then what's happening here. So we have a response here. Okay, let's just see. Let's say console.log hello. Right, just see if we're hitting that route. If I'm just lazy to use Postman, so I think, oh, because I said localhost that's why it's not working. Localhost 5000/API/test. Right, and then we get our response saying hello world, right, and then we have our console log hello. So what happened there is, since this router is now exposed, we can have another router. So we can say have a lot of routers. Let's say that, and let's say a rack, because I'm not lazy to write that long because it's just an example. And then let's just say res.send, and then we say new route. Right, so now that, let's just wait for our server to start up. Now that, so now I can curl that, and then this is the, and then we have that new route, and then now that is working. Right, so now what we want to do is we want to use our controller. So now let's debug our controller. So you guys know programming is all about debugging, and if you guys follow my channel, I'm not all about hiding the debugging process. I do the debugging process with you guys. So let's debug this process and let's see. Right, so let's just debug this. Let's see what errors we are getting here. Right, so let's just first look at the code ourselves. Let's see if we have any errors. Right, so we have that class there. Right, so it doesn't look like, for me personally, this doesn't look to have any errors, but then let's see what this error message is saying. So syntax error, right, 6 of 10. Let's see, 6 of 10. What's happening here? What syntax error is this thing talking about? How come they didn't want me to use ES6? Oh, hence it's saying support for experimental syntax currently isn't enabled. Okay, so now what I believe it wants me to do, it's using the old way, right, of functions, right? So I don't know why it's not allowing ES6 for my functions, but then if I do find a solution, for now that should be the best solution. As you can see, we're not getting any errors because it's not allowing us to use the ES6. And then this is coming from MongoDB, that if you want to create indexes, because it sees us making new users and everything, so this is like the deprecation warnings. So how we resolve that error is we come in here, and then in our connection options we say use create index, and then you set that to be true. Right, and then now those warnings should be gone, and then connection to MongoDB successful. So this was just a simple debugging process, but then I will figure out together how come is not allowing us to use ES6. So now how then for our functions, because ES6 we are using, but then for our functions I don't know why, but then we'll find the root of that. So now in our routers, right, what we want to do is we want to instantiate this new class. We want to say const auth controller, and this auth controller is equals to new auth controller, our object. And then how we want to handle this is going to say router dot post, because remember login is a post request, API slash login. Let's start with the sign up, right, sign up, and then it also has a callback of a request and a response. And then in here we want to use our auth controller dot sign up, noting that it takes in two arguments, which is the request and the response. So how you're wondering right now, hopefully maybe some of you might have picked it up, how the controller now is working and everything, because now in our, let's just close this, because now this request has everything that is within the request of the user, and we are passing it down to this function, and also the response. So the request now has everything that is within the request of that user, what the user requested, right? So that's what we're basically passing down here, hence the controller can handle that, right? And then now, just like this, we're keeping it as clean. So we say, this is the beauty of MVC, guys. Now say route to the post, and then we say API slash login, also callback of request, response, and then when I say auth controller dot login, we also pass down the request and the response. So now this route should be working, and let's test it up by MongoDB, not MongoDB, by opening Postman. So now that should work in my understanding, and if it doesn't, as always, we debug together, guys. So yep, let's just open up Postman, and this should work in my understanding. So if you guys have any questions and anything that you guys want me to clarify, comment down below while we're waiting for Postman. And yeah, and I'll be keen to answer all your questions and help you guys where you guys want help. So this will be log in and sign up. On the next video, we'll do we'll improve our sign up by sending emails for account verification. We'll also log out. We'll also include a log out, but then it won't be that much. And then thereafter we build with including server-side sessions. That's where the logout will be quite viable, and then we get to account recoveries, things like that. Alright, so now we want to make a post request, and we want to say HTTP that 127.0.0.1 that 5000 / API / sign up. And then what I need in my body, we use the form data. I want the username, and the username should be Junior, and then the password, okay, let's just say 123. So to test it out, we're just sending username and password, but then remember we are missing the email and the verified password, so we expect a response saying that all fields have to be entered. So let's just send that. Let's see. Alright, as we get, now we know that our API is working, our MVC is working. We get a message saying all fields have to be entered. So let's continue. Let's say email, and let's say junior@gmail.com, and then let's say verified password, let's say 1234. But then if you guys notice, we have a less than 6 password. We should get that error, right? So let's just get that done. So we're getting all fields have to be entered. That's weird. So we know that there's something wrong with our, unless maybe there's, again, I think maybe this verified password is not entered correctly. Let's come back there. So we expect the username, right? So let's just copy these names properly. So we expect that username, we expect the email, the password, and the verified password. So I think that was maybe the error, I don't know. So let's just try that out. So as you can see, the error was in my verified password. It was not the same, because obviously it was not the same as this. And then my formidable was not catching that, hence it was falling back here. So I knew for sure there was a syntax error there. So now we're getting that password has to be at least 6. So now let's increase that. Let's say 5. Let's say 5, 6. So now it is 6, but then these two do not match. So let's see that, and then passwords do not match. So we know that our API is checking correctly and everything, and then we're not getting even any errors within our server. It's just listening, right? So but then let's now make it proper. Let's say 5, 6. So now we should be logged in for sure. So let's say that, and then let's see, and we're not getting any errors there, and there we go. So is account verified? False. MongoDB is giving us our ID, the username, and as you can see the password is hashed. It's not 1 2 3 4 5 6. Let's just go check it on MongoDB to verify. Alright, so we come to collections, and I don't know why this thing is slow, man. I don't know why MongoDB is slow. So now we come to collections, and then we have our user model, and then here we have our user. So now let's check if we do enter a user with the same username. Alright, let's see if that will catch that. Right, let's see if we send this data back, because it should catch the duplicate username, right? So now if we do that, the user with this email and the username already exist. So now we see that our logic is working just fine. So this is basically the login and sign up. This is the sign up. Let's try the login, and then we'll be done with this. Right, so now we want to log in. Let's just make a new entry here. Let's just copy this. We want to make a post request, and then let's say log in, and then we say body. So in our body we expect the user, in our password we expect the username, and our username is Junior, and then password, let's say 1 2 3 4 5 6. This is a valid password. Let's just test it out. Let's see if it brings back authenticated true. Alright, so as you can see, authenticated true. But then let's just say this, right, because Junior doesn't exist, but then Junior exists. It should send back to us a user with this username does not exist, right? And then we send that back, but then now instead of 6 we say 1 2 3 4 5, and then we should get invalid credentials. That's what we expect, right? And then we get a response saying invalid credentials. So now we can see that sign up, login is working just fine. So now that is basically it for this video. If you like this video, please like, share, comment and subscribe, and on the next video will be for continuing with this API moving forward. Looking to see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.